Ladies and gentlemen, Psalms 40 verse 2 and Psalms 41 verse 2 says, He brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. The Lord will preserve you and keep you alive, and he shall be blessed upon the earth, that is you. And he will not deliver you into the will of your enemies. When you follow the path of love, you'll always win. And those people going against you, they will fail. Such is the case with Golovkin's coach. You know, Golovkin is known as GGG, Mr. Mexican Style. And Golovkin's coach, Abel Sanchez, says this: Mayweather's win should not be counted as number 50. That is his fight against Conor McGregor, who was a debutant in boxing. And I just want to go to Abel Sanchez's actual words. This is what he had to say about this. If he retires and does nothing after that, I don't think that it will be something that would be considered as breaking the record of Marciano. It's just like when these baseball players are caught using performance-enhancing drugs. How can you put those records on file and consider them with the records of the guys that didn't? I think of this talk about an asterisk beside their name for this being done while using the performance-enhancing drug. For Mayweather fighting an amateur, it shouldn't be considered his 50th win. What he does after this fight will determine how he's viewed at the end of his career. So he's taking shots at Floyd Mayweather. And it's very interesting that he would say that, because Mr. Mexican Style, GGG, patterns himself after the great Julio Cesar Chavez. And in the beginning of a boxer's career, you know, they do take debutantes. And Julio Cesar Chavez had a good share of his debutantes. In fact, 40 plus fights into his career, he actually still facing a debutant. As you can see here, in 1983, some 2 years after his debut, he's still facing a debutant in Amando Flores. But you can excuse that because he's learning and he's getting experience. But after you become a world champion, it's kind of hard to digest that you're still facing debutantes or inexperienced fighters. So after his win against Mario Martinez, we don't expect him to be facing debutantes or fighters with very few fights. But he not only did that, but he also faced fighters who continuously lost, as in Roberto Collins Lindo, who out of his 16 fights, lost 15 of them. And this fight, thankfully, was not sanctioned as a championship fight in the super featherweight division. However, it was sanctioned as a fight. And it occurred in Las Vegas as well. I'm just letting you guys know. And there's no way in God's green earth, no way in hell, Robert Collins Lindo, who's a Mexican fighter, was more experienced at boxing than Conor McGregor. I'll tell you why. Most of these Mexican boxers had no amateur career, no amateur pedigree. Most of them just jumped into boxing. So they at least had to have 15 fights, at least, to really be considered on the debutante level of a fighter who has had some amateur experience. And to Conor McGregor's credit, he had some amateur experience in boxing, as well as he was using striking throughout in his MMA career. And also, not only was he an exceptional striker, he was a very good fight striker in the UFC, winning 2 divisional titles and having 2 divisional titles simultaneously in 2 different weight classes. Alright? So, obviously he's a better fighter than Robert Collins Lindo, who was knocked out in the second round. So, we can still excuse that because, hey, he's still a young super featherweight champion. He continues to be a long, extensive super featherweight champion. He moves up in weight class and he becomes a lightweight world champion, facing the best lightweight out there, Edward Rosario, in a championship match, defeating him, knocking him out, stopping him. Okay? So it's not really negative towards him, but when you become a multiple weight class world champion, not only that, but you're also beating the best in the world. He beat Jose Luis Ramirez to become the unified WBA WBC lightweight world champion. At the time in 1988, you were unified and no longer undisputed, but you could look back in time and say, well, he was undisputed. But then he moves up in weight and beats the WBC super lightweight world champion Roger Mayweather. This is the second time he's beating him. And then after that, he goes on to face a number of people who he shouldn't face at the championship level, and that's why the WBC didn't sanction it. But at least they had some kind of respectable record. Kenny Vice was from Atlantic City. He had 26-3-0, which is, he had some amateur background. Rudolfo Bata from Tijuana, Mexico, on the other hand, he barely had any kind of experience. As you can see, he's basically like 10 fights in. If you take away 15 from those fights. He has 25 fights, 15 of them, just to help him. So he gets knocked out in the first round. Ramon Aramburo, come on now. Now you can't even compare this dude to Conor McGregor. This dude is a Mexican fighter. He had one fight. That very first fight he had, he lost. What the hell is Julio Cesar Chavez doing facing a guy called Ramon Aramburo? Come on now. It's getting ridiculous. The dude's not famous. He hasn't done nothing in combat sports. He ain't even got any amateur background. On top of that, he's only had one fight in his career. That's worse than Floyd facing Conor McGregor. But guess what? It counts in his 115 fights. It's on the record. Do you know why this is not an exhibition match? Do you know why it's on the record? Because anytime you fight a fight against someone, all right, and people actually viewed it, it doesn't matter if you're in the backyard or the most, once the sanctioning body is there, it's registered as an official fight. It may not be registered as a championship fight, but it's registered as an official fight. And guess what? Mr. Mexican Style. He did that. He didn't do it once. No. He did it more than once. After he unified the titles against Mildred Taylor to become the IBF WBC Super Lightweight Champion, he then fought back-to-back Aquiado, 5-3-0. Not even a debutante level. Not even a Conor McGregor level. Took him 2 rounds and then stopped him. Then Russell Mosley. He fought him. Now that guy actually had 8 pro fights. Okay, 4-3-1. Okay, because he's come from the American system. I don't know if he had an amateur background. He stopped him in 3 rounds. Okay, he did it again. He did it multiple times in his career. So when you look at the 115 fights, of which he won 107, all right, you got to give him those fights. Otherwise, if you're saying that Floyd, there's an asterisk on his resume, then there's an asterisk on Julio Cesar Chavez's resume. Because he's fighting a guy he shouldn't be fighting. You should call it an exhibition match. You think that's all, folks? I got more for you. And I'm just talking Mexican style. Marco Antonio Barrera. Marco Antonio Rubio was the guy that GGG faced. Sorry, my bad. Marco Antonio Barrera, in his career, coming to the end of it, like Floyd Mayweather's, 2009, after he lost the WBC Super Featherweight title to Juan Manuel Marquez, went on to face a guy with 1-7-1 from Mexico. His name was Frutis Rojas. 1-7-1. That means he had 9 fights. Remember, you have to have 15 fights to be on the level of a professional debutant who's got some amateur backgrounds. At least 15 fights. Do you get what I'm saying? Even Marco Antonio Barrera falls for this. Not once, but multiple times in his career. When he was in his prime. When he was in his prime. He faced a guy called Cesar Nehara. 2-1-1. That's 4 fights the dude had. He was the WBO Super Bantamweight Champion. Okay. So, his 67 wins, 7 losses, 75 bouts. He has in his 75 bouts fights, which he did not. He did not face competition that is on his level in any way, shape, or form. Joe Louis, I'm going outside of Mexican style now. Joe Louis faced a debutant to defend his championship as a heavyweight. It still counted on his record for wins, but they then decommissioned it as a championship fight. One guy wanted it to be a championship fight and then decommissioned that. So it wasn't counted as a championship fight, but it was counted as one of the fights he won. I could go on and on and on about so many of the all-time greats of the past who didn't do it. Now, I want to just mention one guy who did Mexican style who didn't fall for that and didn't do that. And that guy is Eric Morales. You can check his whole entire record. Of course, when he was coming up, of course he fought some debutantes. But other than that, this dude, another guy I will tell you who didn't do that was Oscar De La Hoya. For all the stuff that you guys say about Oscar, he was always matched tough throughout his career. Always. Alright? But Mr. Mexican style, no. So Mr. Golovkin's coach, Abel Sanchez, needs to know that all this stuff he's saying, where he's trying to again take shots at Floyd Mayweather, Mr. Abel Sanchez should know better. He should know better. Another guy who was matched tough throughout his career was Pernell Whitaker. Alright? If Floyd Mayweather wants to, after he beat everybody, he wants to go and fight Conor McGregor, whether you guys think he's a bum or not, Conor McGregor, who has no professional fighting experience until he faced Floyd Mayweather, he can do that. Especially if he's not commissioning it as a championship fight, which it was not, because he had surrendered all the belts 2 years before. He was a 40-year-old man. So, I didn't personally go and watch the thing live. I didn't pay money to see the fight because I knew it was going to be a mismatch. But you never know, because Manny Pacquiao got beat by Jeff Horn. And we had all kinds of upsets this year, so you just never know. It's boxing, right? But at the same time, the intrigue, I can understand why people are intrigued by it, because it was two different people who were specialized in two different things. You had one guy who specialized in boxing, you had another guy who specialized in boxing, grappling, all kinds of fighting styles. And we've seen in movies, I know boxing is not a movie, but we've seen in movies guys who are masters of different styles of fighting who take on boxers and beat them. Not under, well, yes, even under boxing rules, because we had Ip Man out recently where that happened. So, what I'm saying to you guys is this. That was based on a true story, too. What I'm saying to you guys is this. That no matter what people say, a lot of them watched the fight because of the intrigue. Roy Jones Jr. versus Anderson Silva. There was an intrigue with it. It's an event. You know, you kind of expect Floyd Mayweather to win. But then we had guys who didn't even have events like that. You know what I'm saying? And they're fighting literal bums. Guys coming off the roadside. Don't even have no amateur experience. Okay? You talk about Joe Gans. People praise Joe Gans. Oh, he was a great fighter. Blah, blah, blah. He fought this guy and this guy. You know how much bums Joe Gans fought? Guys that came, cab drivers that came straight off the street. And they had a street fight. Do you guys know these things? Like, do you guys know boxing? Okay, they're from way back when boxing was primitive and anybody fought anybody. And seasoned fighters fought pro debuters. Yes, and it's more structured now. But the point is, if you're going to do that for Floyd Mayweather, if Abel Sanchez is going to put that standard that never been there, that standard on Floyd Mayweather Jr., some of your very beloved fighters like Sugar Ray Robinson, for crying out loud. Now you gotta go readjust their records. Rocky Marciano, of all people, who fed off of bums and bums. Joe Louis, who had the Bum of the Month Club, and these bums were coming in and fighting for championship fights. You're gonna have to do something about their records now. You're gonna have to cut, slash, and dash. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. You can't have two different sets of standards for the two different sets of fighters. It don't work like that, Mr. Abel Sanchez. Just putting them on blast. Let's do some more news. As we're in there with Abel Sanchez, he wants to comment on Floyd Mayweather's win. Canelo was saying, I want Golovkin the first thing in 2018. I hope that Abel Sanchez is, since he's talking about Floyd having worthy matches, I just hope he has that rematch with Canelo. He has his boy GGG face Canelo, okay? Because Canelo is saying, look, man, make that fight happen. Make the damn fight happen. And he said it at the WBA conference in Colombia. Okay? So, if I was Abel Sanchez, I would take my eyes off of Floyd Mayweather and I'll focus on Canelo. I need to get my fighter prepared for Canelo again. Because I don't think your fighter was prepared for Canelo. Okay? And he fights with a style that uses some of what Floyd does. And you said, you and your fighter said he ran. Right? Even though he was toe-to-toe with your fighter's ass, he couldn't touch him. Alright? He was beating his ass up. And then when he was ready, he'd make him come to him and follow him all around the ring. But nonetheless, I digress. Canelo says he wants a rematch. He wants it immediately. Okay? He wants it immediately. He said that Tuesday, September the 26th in the WBA conference in Colombia. Okay? He's expressed his desire to have the rematch and have it as soon as possible. So if I was Abel Sanchez right now, I'd be focused on that shit. Now, on to Ward leaving, we asked who could be the pound for pound number one in the world. And there's a number of suggestions by a guy called Lyle Fitzsimmons and how these guys may qualify for that. And Canelo's mentioned in there, Terrence Crawford, and the usual list of names. Lomachenko, GGG, you know, the usual list of names. What I would say to you guys is, we don't know, like one of my subscribers said so correctly, shout out to you. We don't know who really will be at the top of the pound for pound list at the end of the game. It depends on their performances in their next set of fights. But what we do know is this, that the future of boxing looks pretty bright. And that's what's so cool to me. That's what makes it awesome. So I just wanted to cover these different things. Of course, I heard that Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor made 4.4 million pay-per-views. That's pretty decent. And then, of course, Alvarez and Golovkin did well in their pay-per-views. Golovkin, he needs to take this fight because he's going to get more money. Of course, if he's concerned about his health, then, of course, you bow out of the sport of boxing. I heard him say that he wanted to retire, and he was talking about his wife and stuff. Nah, I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's going to face Canelo again. Because that payday is just going to be irresistible. After they see the pay-per-views for this sucker, oh, it's going to be irresistible. So, Canelo got all the clout in the world. Canelo's the next. He's right now the cash cow out there. Have a second fight with Golovkin. That should be awesome. The middleweight division looks promising as well. We'll see how things shape out. But one thing I want to say. You guys need to point out and expose the hypocrisy based on facts, man. See, when you got facts, it's hard for these guys to get away with what they say. So remember, facts trump all the popular sentiment out there. Oh, that Golovkin beat Canelo, and Golovkin's coach is talking about Mayweather, and Tom Laughlin's talking about how Mayweather would get beat by Golovkin and all this kind of crap. Because they know they want to get a big pay. They want to get a big payday, so they're trying to goad Floyd into coming back into boxing, which will never happen. You know what I'm saying? It's never going to happen. All right, and they ain't gonna get. They trying to cash out right now. Golovkin's team is trying to cash out. They know Canelo's dangerous. They know Danny Jacobs is dangerous. So if they would prefer, I think they would prefer to go the route of Floyd. He don't seem that dangerous. He don't seem like he can do damage to Golovkin. So of course they're gonna try and call out Floyd. Even now, you see Abel Sanchez saying it. Tom Loeffler. They hoping that Floyd would just jump in and face Canelo. You know, face out GGG. So he could get another payday. Even though he's 40 years old. 40-year-old man going to go in the ring and face GGG. You know, which is not a problem. It's just the only problem I have is, why don't you face the fighters that are in front of you? What is your problem? Why do you not want to rematch Danny Jacobs? At least you're not showing intentions that you want it. You calling out Floyd. You got your trainer calling out Floyd. You got your promoter calling out Floyd. But you ain't want to face Canelo. Canelo's like, I want you. Why are you looking for Floyd? You think Floyd's going to give you the outlet to escape so you can get more payday? It's not going to happen. You don't got that pay-per-view clout. Canelo got it. If Canelo call out Floyd, Floyd might be like, I wonder, boy. Because, Canelo is the pay-per-view king. Canelo ain't calling out Floyd. He calling out you. He's calling out you. And you got a guaranteed payday, man. So answer the call. Take Floyd's name out of your mouth, man. Right now you're dealing with Canelo. That's the guy in front of you. Deal with him. And rematch Danny Jacobs while you at it. That's who you should be focused on. That's all I got to say. You guys have a great one.